So Taylor keeps asking a question about the Infinity Wars movie. Why didn't he snap his fingers and double the size of the universe?
Okay, see that's as soon as that happened, I was like, okay, so that's dumb. Because in the comics, Thanos was like obsessed with Mistress Death, right? Like originally when let's see you had Iron Man number whatever when Thanos first shows up, and then you had the first appearance of Mistress Death, which is the second time that Thanos shows up, and then you go into Thanos War where he invades Earth and all that kind of good stuff. He was obsessed with Mistress Death, and so you jump forward 40 years almost, and you read Ed Brubaker's Thanos Rising, and you end up finding out when he was a kid, Mistress Death visited him, and then basically like manipulated him over the years into being obsessed with Death, and then eventually he fell in love with her. And so the whole point in the comics is Thanos believes he can get the affection of Mistress Death by wiping out half the life in the universe, and like that's it. The plot to the movie didn't make any sense to me because it's like, okay, so like Thanos, you've done nothing. Like
That
all
whole
you've done
perfectly
is like,
balanced thing wasn't in the comics. That's a movie concept.
no, that's a movie concept. It's totally in the movies.
The comic
And
concept makes a lot more sense now that you've said it.
yeah, it's a lot more reasonable because it adds more depth to his character. The problem is like all Thanos has done is created like a stopgap measure because it's like, okay, cool, Thanos, awesome. So like what happens if like half this population never comes back and then like every sentient being in the universe like understands the value of life and now they all have like two kids instead of one. So not only have you like done nothing to solve the problem, you've actually made it worse. So that doesn't make any sense to me in terms of and I mean, obviously they're going to fix all that by like time travel, wiping the event from the minds of everybody. It'll be like it never happened or something like that.
Right, yeah, but
But
the way you put it, like it seems like he'll have to keep wiping out half the population every 7 to 10 years or so, right? Like
that's what it seems. Yeah, that's what it seems. That's the only answer to keeping like half the population eliminated entirely. Either that, or like wipe out half the population and then take away everybody's ability to procreate. Like use
I
eugenics.
kind of like the movie plotline, even though we're busting holes in it, because it made Thanos a complicated character. If he was just doing it to pick up chicks, he'd be pure evil, and there wouldn't be two sides of him. But in the movie version of him, he's a pretty intelligent guy who
He has benevolent
explains
intentions.
that he's coming from a place of good. You know, my homeworld was ruined because it got overpopulated. I don't want this horrible thing to happen to the rest of the universe. And while I don't agree with him, it's like, but in his head, he's the good guy in this story.
Was
And it makes
everyone
him-
on Thanos' planet a giant hulking monster of a being like he was?
No. Okay. So, all right. Bear with me here.
Oh, I've seen your video on this. I already know the answer, but please continue. Yeah.
Okay. So universe is made, Earth is formed. You have basically like primate man, like man as apes. They were called the Wonders, is actually what they were called at the time. And then you had Celestials who showed up on Earth, and they said, we're going to experiment on humanity. And so you'd have three Celestials who experiment with three groups. You have the Eternals, who are basically like angels. You have the Deviants, who look like trolls. And then you have baseline humans, whose genes were modified so that in some 10 to 20,000 years, powers would start to emerge, which explains like where mutants come from and why Bruce Banner became the Incredible Hulk instead of just turning into tumors and all that kind of stuff. The idea is that at some point along the line, some of the Eternals left Earth and they went to Saturn's moon Titan and they took up residence there. And so for the most part, if you were to walk by an Eternal, they would look human. They would look like beautiful, perfect humans, but they would look like humans. What Thanos has is he's basically like a mutant among his own people. So he's an Eternal, but he has a deviant gene. And that's why, like when he was born, with all the powers of an Eternal and all the physical attributes of a deviant. So he's technically what a deviant would look like, but he's also got like insane levels of strength and speed and durability and stamina and energy projection and stuff like that. But no, I mean, most everybody on this home planet looks like a normal human.
Gotcha.
So is he
Yeah.
bullied a lot and like left out? Is that part of his story where they're like, haha, look at old fat purple head?
Your chin looks
actually-
like my balls.
He's not
That-
fat.
that's-
He's like Brock Lesnar wide.
Well, I'm sure when he was little, like he bulked up quick and it takes some time, to grow into that deviant baby fat.
Yeah, no, like, dude, the story of Thanos is actually really, really sadistic. He was kind of picked on to a degree, but the problem was that he didn't understand why he looked different. And that's when Mistress Death showed up. And she was like, well, you should experiment on people and find out. So he started experimenting on like animals and things like that. And then he started experimenting on people. And then eventually, like there's one point, God, it's like he has this insane point where he seems to lose his mind, because what he ends up doing is he leaves Titan and he ends up traveling around the universe. and this is like 3,000 years before the modern day or something like that. So like he's traveling around the universe. He ends up creating like a band of pirates, more or less. And then like every woman he meets, he procreates with her and then kills her. And then like drags her into his room and then starts talking to her because he sees Mistress Death, but everybody else sees just like a corpse. And so they think he's losing his mind, just like talking to a corpse and trying to understand why the corpse won't love him, which is weird, but kind of funny at the same time. Like, why won't you love me? You know?
That scene should have been in the movie. That's cool.
It would have been hilarious, to be honest.
It's just like a montage, like the Rocky sounds. He's fucking dozens of women to death.
Dude, I would die laughing. No, it's crazy because the Black Order in Infinity War was originally part of Jonathan Hickman's run of Avengers and New Avengers, which took place in Infinity. And the problem, like they wasted those characters so bad because Corvus Glaive, dude, that guy was awesome. So the way this happens is Thanos is looking for his firstborn son. Basically looking for like all the offspring so he can kill them all off so he doesn't have to worry about anybody challenging him. And so Corvus Glaive always precedes Thanos, and he shows up on the planet and he's like, I'm here on behalf of my master. Like all he asked for is like a pittance, like a token, a tribute. And so what he basically says, like what Corvus Glaive says is either you can give us the heads of all the males between like the ages of like 13 and 22.
That's a small thing.
Yeah, the small thing, or we will like raise your planet. We'll annihilate everybody on your planet in its entirety, and basically like everybody gives in until they get to Earth. But no, dude, yeah, like the Cold Obsidian was super cool in the comics. Like that's a problem that Marvel has in the movies is like they waste villains, and I don't really understand why.
What is Marvel gonna do when they have to switch actors? Like the Marvel universe in the movies, I think is amazing. But how long can Tony Stark be Iron Man? How long are they going to have Captain America in that job? He seems to want to retire every movie. I don't know what the scoop with that is.
Yeah, I don't know.
There's no plan for that? You think they'll be able to replace Iron Man, make Iron Man not the center of the show anymore?
I mean, they'll switch him out. The problem is, will people accept it? Because like Robert Downey Jr. is the face of the MCU. He's amazing. And so that's the question. Like, will people go see an Iron Man movie or more than one Iron Man movie that does not feature Tony Stark? Because if they come out with like Iron Man 4 and like it's James Rhodes becoming the new Iron Man, people will go see it just to see what it's like. The question is, will they go see Iron Man 5 and Iron Man 6 and like the movies that come after or any of the Avengers movie? If Steve Rogers...
James Rhodes?
James Rhodes is Don Cheadle. He's a black guy.
Oh, John Cheadle.
Yeah. So if they do what they did in the comics when they killed Captain America and they make Bucky Barnes the new Captain America, will people go see that movie? Like that's the question. Honestly, there's no other alternative. Like either they're going to have to write the characters out entirely or like kill them off,
or do a massive reboot and go to a different author's storyline.
Yeah, exactly. Like something along those lines. I mean, they have the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, so they can make movies for the next like 100 years because people don't understand. Like people don't understand how big it is. I mean, Chris Claremont wrote the X-Men for 17 years. Like that's 17 years worth of stories. And so that's just the X-Men. That's just Uncanny X-Men. Then you have X-Factor, then you have X-Force, and then you have like Cable, and you have like, what is it, X-Sanction when Cable crushed the Avengers and the X-Men like by himself at the same time. Like you have like all those things that go on.
You mentioned the Fantastic Four. Lightweights like me think the Fantastic Four is stupid because all the movies have been stupid.
Oh, they're not. Oh, dude, Woody. Okay.
Wait, what? The movies are good, you say?
No. The movies are garbage. Like the comics. The comics are amazing.
All I know is, like, I don't know the comics. I've just been told that the Fantastic Four is really good, that it's amazing. But the whole world, people like me, think the Fantastic Four is lame because they've only seen the movies.
Yeah, and that's fair. I mean, if your only exposure to the Fantastic Four are the movies, and yeah, of course you're going to because you're going to be like, okay, so like these movies were boring and they were stupid, and like the most recent one, Fan Four Stick, was a travesty. But like, you know, the character of Galactus is?
No.
Okay, so Galactus is like this universal constant, right? Like this is a guy that can do almost anything he wants to.
Mm-hmm.
Like he can resurrect people from the dead. He can wipe out. You know, the caveat to him is that in order to keep his life sustained, he has to consume planets that can support life. And so there's one point in Jonathan Hickman's Fantastic Four run when the son of Reed Richards, like Franklin Richards from the future, comes back into the past, and Galactus is dead. He literally resurrects him from the dead and like makes him his herald. And so the son of Reed Richards like resurrects a god from the dead and then turns him into a servant. Like it's one of the craziest things that I've ever seen, and you kind of have to read it in context to really grasp it. But no,
Galactus has always been a weird character to me because he's so physically large that it's like hard to get him on the page even and make it make sense.
Yeah,
Like how tall is Galactus? Like
Oh.
10,000 miles? No, he's bigger than that. He's bigger than 10,000 miles tall.
Wait, is he just kind of like floating out in space, eating?
no. I mean, he's not really like. I mean, he's not. I don't think he's that tall. I mean, the tallest thing in the Marvel universe is the God Killer armor. Is Iron Man's God Killer armor, and that was 25,000 feet tall. So,
Wait, how does like his suit gets to be 25,000?
No. There was in the early days of the universe, war that broke out between gods, between the Celestials and a group called the Aspirants. And the Aspirants built this God Killer armor that was 25,000 feet tall in order to destroy the Celestials, but the Aspirants lost. And so like this armor sat derelict for like billions and billions of years. And so eventually Tony Stark like takes control of it. And this thing is bigger than like cities. Like it's insane how big, how huge this thing is. But Tony Stark like takes control of it and like flies it back to Earth. It's the most insane thing ever. But yeah, no, I mean Galactus is probably like a couple thousand feet tall, but you're right. I mean he's massive in size. Like it's insane. I mean, like he would dwarf the average person. I mean, I don't, to have him show up on Earth in a Marvel movie would be nuts, because it would be like this huge epic dramatic thing when like this 2,000 to 3,000 foot tall guy with a giant purple helmet like lands on Earth, and it's like, okay, so like everyone's gonna die now. Like it's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Can anybody? Who's the most power? That's always what I want to know. Is like the power ranking. So with that guy, like Galactus, he's probably at the top.
Oh, dude, man! Now you see now. Oh my gosh!
That's because I know there are so many different stories that like cross and stuff that like it's probably not well defined.
Now you're getting into the clickbait stuff. Like these always make good videos, like clickbait videos. Marvel's most powerful character. Okay, so if you're talking about like gods, then it's the one above all, which is literally like this immutable, indestructible being. And depending on what you're reading, sometimes it's Jack Kirby, who was the artist in the 1960s that made like most of the characters that you know. So like Thor, Iron Man, like a lot of those were basically created by him alongside Stan Lee. Sometimes it's actually Stan Lee, but basically like the one above all represents like the editors, writers, artists, all that stuff. After that is the Living Tribunal, which is the judge of the multiverse, to basically make sure there's no imbalance of like magical energy, whatever the hell that means. And then after that, you start getting into just like different characters based on circumstance. So you have like the Beyonders, who were powerful enough to destroy the Living Tribunal and wipe out the multiverse. You've got like the Molecule Man, Owen Reese. You've got Protege, who can copy the powers of everybody who meets, like regardless of how powerful they are. So it really kind of waxes and wanes. You got like Thanos with the heart of the universe. It just kind of shifts and changes around.
Yeah, it's situational. Whoever needs to be the most powerful to make the story cool. Sometimes it seems like.
Apparently, I bored Woody. He just left.
Nah,
That's probably peeing. I'm brewing up a pee.
You got that large prostate.
Who's the shittiest? Who has the shittiest power, in your opinion, of people in the MCU?
Those people who are living under the city. Was it the Morlocks or whatever? The ones that.
The Malloy. Oh my God, Kyle, what are they called?
It's where
the Mole Man, the Malloids. That's what they are.
Yeah, they had the shittiest powers. They were basically just deformed. Like there's a great scene.
Yeah, you're talking about the Morlocks. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. There's a great
My power is I have spina bifida.
That's it. There's a
So
scene.
they're just okay. They don't count then if they're just handicapped.
No, they're mutants though. It's like there's an episode of the X-Men cartoon where like a thug gang of just mean humans is chasing this frog boy like through an alley, and he's like, I don't even have any powers. I just look like a frog.
Yeah, no, you're talking about Leech. No, Leech was cool. Leech had the power to shut down other people's powers. Yeah, within like a 10-foot radius. But yeah, no, that's basically what it is. Like there are people who have powers, most of which suck, and like they're so deformed, like they can't live on the surface because they would just be like hunted down. But no, like life sucks when you're a Morlock. Like you're literally living in the sewers of New York, just like slumming it day by day. It's the worst circumstance to be in.
They've got it pretty bad. Who's then of the main cast and crew, people that someone like me might know, who's like the X-Men or whoever when they show up to the battle, everybody's like, oh, okay. Well, I guess so and so's here now.
I thought Jubilee's powers were always pretty lame.
Jubilee.
Oh yeah. Well, it depends. Okay, so there's a character named Emma Frost who is a telepath that's more powerful than Charles Xavier. And there was a comic, and I can't remember which one it was, but she took control of Iceman and realized that Iceman was like super powerful. That if he wanted to, he could just like stop the Earth and basically like wipe out all life on the Earth. And then she realized that what Jubilee had the ability to do was detonate matter on the atomic scale. So she could literally just like create atomic detonations all over the place if she wanted, like if her powers ever got to that level. The problem is that they're not. She just creates sparkly lights. So she's only really like useful on the 4th of July and like no other time of the year. So, but yeah, like, okay. So if that's the question, like which X-Men shows up and people are just like, well, I mean, okay.
Not necessarily X-Men. I just say X-Men. Like I just mean the whole gaggle. Yeah.
Captain America. Captain America sucks. Like.
Vindicated.
No. Yeah, I know people are just like Captain America, like Captain. I'm like, okay, so like he can run fast and punch hard. Like who gives a shit? Like whatever, man. Like he's got a stupid little shield, and that's like the one thing he has. No, Captain America blows.
I couldn't agree more. He sucks. Yeah. I'd rather have Brock Lesnar on my team.
Dude, me too, man. Just doing like F5s to everybody.
Yeah.
like Paul Heyman cheering him on, like, oh my God! And I was like, F5 Thanos. That'd be amazing. Yeah, I would love that.
See, Kyle, you're wrong. I have the expert on my side. You like Captain America. You said I was retarded for saying that I'd rather have Brock Lesnar on my team.
Captain America's value is in his leadership skills and his organization of.
Oh my God, Kyle, you're so full of shit. That's like people saying. That's like people saying like I wouldn't date her, but like she has a nice personality. Like, that's what it comes down to.
I just think he's a great leader, and oftentimes the personality.
He doesn't even know how to use Microsoft Excel. And in this day and age, how's he organizing shit? They're flipping through pamphlets. He sucks dick. Fuck Captain America.
He schedules the meeting. No one's there. He's like, I guess they didn't get my letters. I don't know. I don't know. I mailed them out 10 days ago. I put the right postage on them. Where is Tony at?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Pigeons. Yeah.
Yeah, Captain America's. I mean, I wouldn't go as far as say like he's the worst, but he's certainly boring. Like, there's really nothing good about him aside from the fact that he can like people respect him and he can like marshal forces. But it's like whatever, man. Like, because I'm personally more interested in like the super powerful characters and like godly characters and space events. And so when you have stuff like that, like you have a character like Protege who has no limit to the powers he can copy. You've got characters like Annihilus who literally led an army of. There's a story in Marvel Comics called Annihilation. Came out in 2006, written by Dan Abnett. This guy in the negative zone, Annihilus, and if you don't know what the negative zone is, it doesn't matter, but it's just a different dimension. He literally leads an army of like trillions of bugs into the main Marvel universe and just like almost wipes everything out, like almost destroys the whole universe. Like you have like Star-Lord and you have like all these guys who are just like fleeing for their lives and just trying to survive, just trying to take it day by day. And like, that's it. But you've got characters like that. You've got like you have all these crazy uber characters. And then here comes Captain America with his ability to run pretty fast and punch kind of hard,
with his analog watch to make sure we're all synced. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And his scout badges, and he can make s'mores with the best of them, and it's like okay, like whatever. Yeah,
he teaches them like knot tying and shit like that.
When I was a kid, I always thought I would want to be Morph. Like Morph could copy could like become any of the X-Men, like a slightly lesser version of them. It seemed like, but he could become whoever he wanted to be, and use their powers. But he was always a very troubled individual, and Wolverine was always like, Morph, no, come back. He's like, I gotta go away again.
This one's for you, Morph. Well, it's okay. It's funny that you mentioned that because Morph in the cartoon show was created for the cartoon show. Like he never actually existed in the comic. Well, he did much later on during what was that? They had a mini series called World Tour where they jumped from Dimension to Exiles. Like there was a version of him created for Exiles, but a character in Marvel Comics that actually can copy the powers of other people is Copycat, Vanessa Carlyle, the girlfriend of Deadpool. You have Mystique, who can only look like other people, but Copycat can actually copy all their abilities and everything. So she's pretty legit. But Morph would have been cool, man. Like just turning into people and just like going places, like that'd be awesome.
How did you like Logan?
Oh, I loved it. I think it's the best of the Fox X-Men movies.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I really love that movie. I thought it was excellent. That's the one I was telling you to watch last week, Taylor.
I'll watch that one next. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the dark R-rated adult Wolverine movie.
Yeah, and the Blu-ray, the 4K Blu-ray actually comes with a black and white version, which is it's not hugely different, but it actually kind of changes a bit. But it's the Wolverine movie that we always needed, like the dark and gritty Wolverine. The problem is it's called Logan, and originally it was billed as being based on Old Man Logan, but it's totally different from the Old Man
Yeah,
Logan
it is.
story. It's more like Unforgiven. So I don't know if you ever saw
It
Unforgiven.
is.
About
Oh,
Thanos
it's my
and
favorite
all that
Western.
stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, yes. Okay, so it's like Unforgiven meets Wolverine, and it's just amazing. It's so good.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of wish it'd been more like Old Man Logan. So because I like revenge movies, and if you start out, that's the one where like the Hulk family kills Logan's family, right?
Yes.
What's that storyline? Yeah, I want that storyline where like the Hulk family, they're all green but different. They literally murder and smush Wolverine's entire family, like his children, his wife, and he comes home and he's like, "What the fuck happened?
Yeah, dude, it's
Who smushed my family?"
yeah. That was
Smush my family.
okay, Taylor. So the Old Man Logan story
Hmm.
was based on this idea that the Red Skull sat down and said, okay, so we as villains have always been defeated because we've always faced our heroes the same way. So like we're gonna change everything. And so like Jubilee is at the X-Men mansion, Wolverine's there with her, and then like Jubilee starts getting like these emergency broadcasts from like the Fantastic Four and like the Avengers and like the Inhumans, which didn't really matter because the Inhumans suck. But like all the superhero teams, like Alpha Flight, Excalibur, they're all just like we need help, SOS, like we need help, whatever. And then around that time, all the X-Men villains come smashing in to like the Xavier Institute. And so you have Wolverine who's panicking and he's like, get all the kids, get them out of here. And he's calling for the X-Men. And he's like killing all the villains, all that kind of stuff. And then at the end of it all, when all the villains are dead, Mysterio shows up. And he says, like, thank you, Wolverine. We never could have done it without you. And they end up realizing it was all an illusion created by Mysterio, and Wolverine killed all the X-Men. And so, like, after that, he's like, I'm never going to pop my claws again. So the story progresses. He ends up leaving his family to travel with Hawkeye, and, you know, a few things happen. But when he comes back, the Hulk family had basically, like, killed his family. And so, like, after 50 years of refusing to pop his claws, who Kyle's like the coolest thing ever, 50 years refusing to pop his claws, you get this full-page spread, and it just says, snicked. And it's just like, damn! And then he goes on a massacre. He kills them all. It's insane.
Yeah, Wolverine's got to be one of my fairface characters. I don't know. He's just such a well-written character. His powers are fucking cool. The claws are cool. Yeah. The whole thing. The adamantium.
Sideburns are fucking cool.
The mutton chops. Like the whole fucking thing. The hair, the costume.
Hair. Awesome.
The hair, like his shoulders,
back hair,
like in the cartoon, his shoulders are showing, and they've got like blue hair, like you could the cartoon representation of Taylor. Essentially, he's just furry,
but he's shorter.
He's fucking 5'3".
Yeah,
twice as heavy because you're made of titanium or whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah,
adamantium.
Adamantium. I don't know, something hard and scary sounding.